Hello and welcome. I am Michio Kaku. It is April 28th, 2026, and exactly 12 hours ago, NASA's Deep Space Network logged an astronomical event originating from 3I Atlas that has a staggering 0.0001% chance of natural occurrence. I'm talking about an incoming interstellar object actively plowing through a dense, high-velocity meteor stream. But it did not shatter. It did not fragment. Instead, it pushed the cosmic rocks aside, like a massive snowplow clearing a winter highway. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope detected this completely impossible behavior at exactly 4:12 UTC. Picture this. Imagine an object supposedly made of fragile cosmic ice and loose dust traveling at immense speeds, suddenly encountering a localized field of kinetic debris. Under normal astrophysical models, a comet hitting a meteor stream is a violent, chaotic collision resulting in massive material loss. But the data shows 3I Atlas displacing over 33 billion tons of rocky debris without altering its own trajectory by even 0.03 degrees. A precision that tight, that requires structural integrity defying all known cometary physics. That requires a mechanical mass distribution we have never seen in nature. Think about that for a moment. When you examine the data, the physics here is deeply intriguing because comets are fundamentally dirty snowballs. They are fragile. They disintegrate when subjected to thermal stress or kinetic impacts. Yet, what we are witnessing right now defies our models. The numbers are unambiguous. In over 4 million years of simulated cometary observation, we have never documented an object physically sweeping debris out of its orbital path while maintaining a perfectly linear trajectory. The probability of an ice-based object surviving this without a catastrophic fragmentation event is roughly 1 in 4.7 billion. Let that sink in, and the implications are profound. If you could zoom out to a cosmic scale, from Earth's perspective, this looks like an armored vanguard carving a pristine tunnel through a chaotic asteroid field. Even scientists at the European Space Agency, who have spent decades analyzing minor planetary bodies, immediately classified this telemetry as anomalous. When an institution at that level initiates emergency data sharing protocols, we need to pay very close attention. The clock is ticking. Right now, as I am speaking, 3I Atlas is continuing its approach. It is not just surviving the journey. It is actively mastering its environment. But that is just the beginning. The real mystery starts now. Because displacing rocks is one thing, how it displaced them is something else entirely. What NASA's instruments captured in the immediate aftermath of this event challenges the very foundation of classical mechanics. Before we dive into the collision itself, we must establish what 3I Atlas actually is. Discovered on August 14, 2025, by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System in Hawaii. This interstellar interloper immediately raised eyebrows. Why? Because its light curve did not match any known comet. It was too consistent, too rigid. Most comets tumble erratically, shedding volatile gases and dust in uneven jets. 3I Atlas, however, has maintained a rotational stability that is practically synthetic. It entered our solar system moving at an astonishing 87.6 kilometers per second. And that speed, combined with its bizarre structural integrity, set the stage for the impossible event we just witnessed. Pause and realize what this means. We are tracking a projectile. On April 27, 2026, at precisely 1842 UTC, this object intersected the Beta Taurid meteor stream. This is a dense river of ancient kinetic debris left behind by comets. Encke, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, using its NIRCam instrument, was positioned directly on 3I Atlas during this exact window. The initial readings were so bizarre that automated systems flagged them as sensor glitches, but they were not glitches. NASA detected an immediate, aggressive displacement of silicate particles. The debris was not smashing into the object, it was being deflected at 87.63-degree angles. The numbers do not lie. But in astrophysics, a single observation is never enough. We require corroboration, and that is exactly what happened. NASA's James Webb detected this violent, organized deflection. The European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft independently verified the sudden shift in the meteor stream's kinetic energy. Finally, the ALMA array in the Atacama Desert cross-referenced the thermal signatures, yielding the exact same result. 3 independent sources, different methodologies, identical conclusion. Think of it like this. Imagine driving a standard civilian car into a brick wall at highway speeds. The result is catastrophic destruction. Now imagine driving a military tank into that same wall. The tank pushes through, scattering the bricks. What the triple source validation proves is that 3I Atlas acted like the tank, a massive, impenetrable plow. But here's where the physics breaks down. A tank has a hardened steel hull. A comet is supposed to be porous ice. And when you look at this from a theoretical standpoint, a loose agglomeration of ice and dust cannot exert that level of blunt force trauma on a dense asteroid field without shattering into a million pieces. This should not be possible. But wait until you hear what happened next, because the anomaly did not stop with a single deflection. First, the object breached the outer perimeter of the meteor stream at 1904 UTC, displaying an inexplicable repelling force that pushed micrometeors away before physical contact. Then, at 2115 UTC, the dense inner core of the debris field was breached. Boulders the size of small buildings were shoved aside like snow accumulating on a plow blade. Now, as of this morning, a distinct symmetrical void has been carved out behind the object, each action more impossible than the last. Consider the sheer scale of the displaced material. We are talking about 33 billion tons of kinetic mass redirected in a matter of hours. The energy required to move that much mass is astronomical. If we calculate the kinetic transfer using classical Newtonian mechanics, 3I Atlas should have decelerated. It should have lost momentum. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, correct? That is a fundamental law of our universe. Yet, the telemetry from Hubble's Wide Field Camera 3 shows zero deceleration. None. It maintained its velocity down to the 100th of a meter per second. Let me put this in perspective. To push aside a mountain of rock in the vacuum of space without losing speed requires either an internal propulsion system compensating for the drag or a localized gravitational manipulation that we do not possess. The math to understand, and that is not the most bizarre part. As the data poured into the Jet Propulsion Laboratory over the last 12 hours, scientists began modeling the shape of the displacement wave. When a natural object moves through debris, it leaves a messy, chaotic wake. The particles tumble randomly. But what if our model is incomplete? Because the wake left by 3I Atlas is not chaotic. Look at this data point. The ALMA Band 7 receivers recorded the dust and rock settling into a highly organized V-shaped shockwave, exactly 45 degrees on the port side, exactly 45 degrees on the starboard side. The precision is terrifying. Everyone assumes this is just a remarkably dense comet The data suggests otherwise. It suggests a streamlined aerodynamic contour operating in a vacuum where aerodynamics should not even apply. The question we need to ask is, what kind of structure produces a perfect mathematical wake in the chaotic vacuum of deep space? When I first saw these numbers, I had to verify them twice. The data is staring us right in the face. We are looking at over 12,000 cataloged objects within that meteor stream, and every single one of them was manipulated with absolute surgical precision by an object we still classify as a simple, dirty snowball. The scientific consensus is shifting because the undeniable physical reality of what this object is doing simply cannot be ignored anymore. This represents a profound paradigm shift in how we understand interstellar objects entering our system. Yes? And then, on April 28, 2026, at precisely 6:14 UTC, something changed. NASA's Deep Space Network detected a massive spike in thermal radiation. This was not in the models. This was not predicted. This changes everything. When a comet experiences severe kinetic friction, its surface temperature should rise evenly, causing sublimation. The ice turns to gas, but the thermal imaging from the European Space Agency's infrared monitors reveals something profoundly disturbing. The heat was not distributed randomly, it was localized into a perfect geometric grid. Think about that. Friction generates heat. Heat melts ice. But the data shows the heat being channeled away from the point of impact. Wait, no sublimation, no outgassing? Impossible. But confirm. 3 times. From a thermodynamic perspective, this material behaves exactly like an advanced heat shield. The conventional explanation is that we are looking at a hyperdense carbon matrix. But what if our model is incomplete? What if the conventional explanation is utterly wrong? Let me quantify this for you. The probability of a natural comet surviving a direct impact with a 5-meter asteroid at 87.6 kilometers per second, roughly 0.001%. The probability of an ice-based object maintaining its exact internal core temperature while absorbing millions of kinetic impacts, less than 0.00005%, both occurring in the same object simultaneously. Multiply those odds. That is a 1 in 900 trillion chance. To fully comprehend the sheer absurdity of this statistic, you must understand kinetic transfer in a vacuum. When two cosmic bodies collide, the energy does not dissipate into the air because there is no air. The energy transfers directly into the structural lattice of the objects. A standard comet would shatter into dust, creating a chaotic, expanding cloud of microscopic shrapnel. The European Space Agency specifically designed models to predict this exact fragmentation pattern. They expected to see a spectacular disintegration event. Instead, they recorded the exact opposite. That is the equivalent of flipping a coin and having it land on its edge 10,000 times in a row in 4 million years of cometary observation. We have never seen this combination of thermal and kinetic resilience. Let me put this in perspective. Imagine holding an ordinary ice cube and blasting it with a high-powered industrial sandblaster. It vanishes in fractions of a second. Now imagine multiplying that kinetic force by a factor of 10,000 on a cosmic scale. From Earth's perspective, this looks like a ghost ship ignoring the crushing waves of a Category 5 hurricane. The physics here breaks down entirely. The numbers are definitive. The energy required to dissipate that much localized heat without shedding mass violates the established laws of thermodynamics as they apply to natural celestial bodies. Even leading authorities at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, who have spent their entire careers modeling minor planetary impacts, issued statements of sheer disbelief. When someone at that level runs the supercomputer simulations 12 times and gets a catastrophic failure error message every single time, and when an institution like the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics takes emergency action to instantly redirect their primary observation payloads, we need to pay very close attention. Dr. Avi Loeb recently noted that the structural cohesion required to withstand the beta-Taurid meteor stream implies a tensile strength exceeding that of military-grade titanium alloys. In all my years studying theoretical physics and astrophysics, I have rarely seen raw data so cleanly defy our expectations. At T-minus 36 hours before the stream intersection, the trajectory was completely normal. At T-minus 24 hours, the thermal signature stabilized in a highly anomalous way. At T-minus 12 hours, the first major rock was deflected. Right now, the clock is ticking. Time is running out to categorize this object before it passes the orbit of Mars. The object is carving its path deeper into the debris field, and it is accelerating. Yes, you heard that correctly. Look at this data point. The Hubble Space Telescope's Wide Field Camera 3 tracked the object's velocity after the deepest part of the kinetic collision. It did not slow down. It gained speed by exactly 0.08 meters per second squared. A non-gravitational acceleration, the object is pushing through a literal wall of solid rock and speeding up. There is no natural explanation, yet the physics here is intriguing because, traditionally, outgassing causes acceleration in comets. A comet acts like a rocket, shooting heated gas out the back to push itself forward against the vacuum of space. But we already established there's absolutely no outgassing. The ALMA Band 7 receivers in Chile confirmed absolute zero chemical emission. No water vapor detected, no carbon monoxide, no cyanide jets, nothing. So what exactly is pushing it? What is driving this massive, impenetrable plow forward against the overwhelming friction of billions of tons of cosmic rock? Think of it like a submarine, moving rapidly through dense water without a propeller, yet continually gaining immense momentum. From a quantum perspective, the atomic bonds holding this object together must possess a tensile strength defying conventional chemistry. The silicate and iron-rich rocks of the meteor stream are striking the object's leading edge with enough kinetic energy to detonate like small nuclear warheads. Yet, the surface of 3I Atlas remains completely unblemished. NASA's spectroscopy data from earlier today confirms no loss of external mass, none. It is deflecting asteroid fragments with the resilience of a solid block of tungsten, all while maintaining the incredibly low overall mass profile of a highly porous comet. The precision here is remarkable. It is navigating the densest region of the beta-Taurid stream, dodging the largest planetary fragments, and physically sweeping away the smaller ones, all while accelerating without an engine. The telescopes are recording a mechanical dance in the dark of space. We are witnessing an object impose its will on the surrounding environment. But what I am about to show you, this is the data that prompted a classified emergency briefing at the highest levels of the astrophysics community just 3 hours ago, because the massive debris field that 3.I Atlas pushed aside, the billions of tons of shattered rock and cosmic dust, it did not just float away randomly into the void. It did something that will completely rewrite our understanding of orbital mechanics. Everything I have shown you, the distinct anomalies, the impossible statistics, the severe authority concerns, all documented by this morning. But we are not done. On April 28, 2026, at exactly 9:30 UTC, a newly formed tracking team detected something else, something not in any prior data, something that was not supposed to exist. The 33 billion tons of kinetic debris that 3R Atlas displaced did not just scatter into the vacuum. The rocks and dust coalesced into a perfect, mathematically precise ring system around the main body. The displaced debris is now actively orbiting the object at exactly 14.2 kilometers per second. It formed a localized, stable gravity well that completely contradicts the previously recorded low mass profile of the object. When you examine the data, the implications are staggering. If this is somehow a naturally occurring gravitational capture, then the mass-to-volume ratio of this interstellar traveler fundamentally breaks our standard planetary formation models. If this is a highly localized electrostatic phenomenon, then the entire paradigm of deep space molecular interaction shifts forever. But here's what keeps astrophysicists awake. If this object intentionally harvested that specific kinetic material to construct a functional rotating debris shield against the meteor stream, then the consequences rewrite human history. We would be looking at autonomous architecture. Within just 2 hours, the European Space Agency did something unprecedented. An emergency protocol change and public data classification regarding the beta-Taurid telemetry. In my 40 years of theoretical physics, that has happened rarely, and that alone tells you the magnitude of what we are dealing with. The consensus is shifting. Picture this scenario. You push snow aside, and instead of falling away, the snow begins to orbit your vehicle in a perfect circle. That is exactly what NASA's Deep Space Network antenna DSS-43 just verified. 3 independent sources validated this ring formation. The probability of capturing debris at that exact velocity in 0.03 degrees of a perfect equatorial inclination is absolutely zero. The physics here breaks down completely because 3I Atlas does not possess the necessary gravitational pull to hold those massive rocks. Yet the numbers are definitive. The ring is rapidly solidifying. It is not just pushing rocks aside like a plow anymore. It is wearing them like impenetrable armor. Consider the profound implications. This should not exist at all, but the highly sensitive instruments are recording it live. The object has essentially weaponized its own harsh environment. And we are not finished, because the data I'm about to show you in the final section, this is exactly where the science gets truly inexplicable. Hold on, because what comes next is even more shocking. Time is running out to explain this anomaly. Let's establish what we know with absolute certainty: the thermal resilience, the statistical impossibility, the authority confirmation, the impossible ring formation. These are documented observations, but one question remains unanswered. What is generating the localized gravity well? Because the answer determines everything. If natural, the completely broken paradigm. If artificial, the ultimate implication is world-changing. There's absolutely no middle ground. One is our reality, and the clock is running right now. Every telescope is collecting data. In precisely 48 hours, we will have critical structural telemetry. The data stream is active. 3I Atlas is altering its environment. The signal is ongoing. And whatever it is trying to communicate, Earth is listening.